I'd just like to say a big welcome to everyone for this 20th edition of UFI Connects. UFI Connects are talk sessions, panels on different topics, why we've been constrained during COVID-19 to stop organising events. So just a quick reminder on the housekeeping. You're all on mute while our speakers are speaking, and that includes me. There'll be lots of times for comments and for questions, and just use the chat function and on the bottom of the screen if you have both, if you have comments or questions, and we will then field your questions and I'll call you out so that you can ask your question. The team will activate your microphone and you'll be seen on screen if you have the camera on, obviously. So, women leadership. Now this is, sorry, I'm Sonia Thomas, I didn't introduce myself. I'm UFI CEO and I'm the moderator for today's session. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about women leadership, and it's a subject that is very, very close to my heart. I've been glad to see in recent years, various efforts in this particular domain, with the women in exhibitions movement, etc., but we're not quite there yet. So I just would like to share some, if you just bear with me. I'd just like to share my screen with you. So a few facts and figures, first of all, from the exhibition industry. So it's an industry where there are a lot of women employed. So the figure that we usually refer to is 70% of women that are employed at entry level. However, if you look at the senior leadership, this figure drops to 9%. Women have, therefore, logically, fewer role models than men do. Women today are working harder than ever, even compared to 10, 20, 25, 30, 50 years ago. Some men have taken over the childcare role that women have always assumed, but this is generally still the domain of the mother. And ongoing research has showed that the best mix of competencies are from both genders, so from both men and from women. This is a graph I wanted to share with you that shows very clearly the influence of having a higher percentage of female management on share price performance. Now, if you look very carefully, I would say back in 2010, there wasn't a big difference, but you can see a major difference as in later years. The companies that have either 30% or more of female leadership in management perform much better than companies that don't. This is a gender report that's done on a yearly basis, I think, by Credit Suisse. So I would look at this a little bit, just very briefly, if you agree. I kind of find that sometimes for women it's difficult because they find themselves in a no-win situation. There's a major difference in expectations regarding the roles that men and women play, and because sometimes can be what we call a double bind situation is, and some form of prejudice due to stereotyping. So for each gender, you have a certain number of qualities and behavioral tendencies that we attribute to that gender, and we have very, very strong expectations on what roles men and women should occupy. So typically, women are seen as being affectionate, helpful, and nurturing, and men are seen as being aggressive, dominant, and self-confident. Now, if a woman tends to show that she's aggressive, dominant, or self-confident, she'll be seen to be displaying male attributes. If she shows female attributes, she'll not be considered as having what is needed to drive a company to success. Hence the problem. So, is it a concrete wall that women are hitting? Is it a glass ceiling? Or is it a labyrinth? They don't know where to start and they don't know where to finish. This is just a little quotation I'd like to share with you from Ki Moon. Women hold up more than half the sky and represent much of the world's unrealized potential. And I think this says a lot. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to UFI President Mary Larkin. He's also President of Diversified Communications USA. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to do a quick poll actually before I hand over to Mary. Pascal, would you be kind enough to pull up the poll? So I've just got a quick question for everyone, 2 quick questions. Why do you think there are less women in senior leadership? Is it because of lack of ambition on the part of women? Lack of role models, mentorship opportunities? Men tend to choose other men for senior roles? Difficulty in balancing personal life with professional life? Or women find it more difficult to promote themselves? Or none of the above? So I would say there's a clear case for men tend to choose other men for senior roles. And sometimes women find it difficult to promote themselves. Okay, so that's quite a strong answer there. Thank you. And Pascal, can you move on to the second question? You'd be so kind. Do you think that the exhibition industry would benefit from more women at senior level? But majority of respondees have said, 96% have said yes, definitely. So thank you for answering those 2 short questions. And then I hand over to you, Mary. Thank you.
Sonia, this is just for introductions first, yes?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so good morning from cloudy Maine, just looking out the window. I'm delighted to be a part of this. So my name's Mary Larkin. I started my career in the exhibitions industry in Ireland over 28 years ago. And I am now celebrating my 25th anniversary this week, both working for Diversified and having emigrated to the US. So I came over for 18 months, 25 years ago. And so I started in sales. That's where my career evolved through both the company and when I was in Ireland, and sort of moved up, very passionate about the industry, probably a little bit too passionate sometimes, but I think, you know, you like what you do, so you want to do it, and you want to do it well, and you want to get involved in everything, and I bite off more than I can chew many times. So I've recently, in the past 18 months, become president of Diversified Communications US. But prior to that, I was getting very involved in both CISO and UFI, and particularly around the role of women's leadership, another area that I'm passionate about. And partly because, you know, I see so many great women who are working diligently behind the scenes and not promoting themselves enough. And a number of years back, I spoke to the then president of Diversified, who was Nancy Hasselback, about taking a course at Kellogg to do a course on women in senior leadership. Now, I was looking at global business courses, and I'm thinking, I do that every day. How can I resolve my own problems here? That course was life-changing. And I want to say one thing. When I went in there, there were all these women who were from the State Department, from Discover Card, like major corporations and organizations. And they were there, many of them, probably those further along in their career, were there to say, I am here to learn how I can help other women succeed. I'll be honest, in 2012, I was there to help myself. But now, as things have moved on, that is my goal, is to help other women succeed in organizations, because the more I research, the more I find that we have to help each other as well. So I think that's about it for my introduction. The only thing I would say is, as president of UFI, in Bangkok last year, I did announce that this was a diversity in leadership. And I'm as passionate about race and creed, as well as gender, in leadership roles, that I really do feel that COVID-19 has sort of put this on the back burner a little bit. So this drive, thanks to help from Kaya and Sonia, has been to let's get it back in the front of the picture, because there's only a few months left of my presidency, and I do want to make an impact for women in our industry globally. So I'll hand it back to you, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. And now I'm going to hand over to Debbie Stanford-Kristiansen. Now, Debbie is the CEO of Novo Cinemas in the United Arab Emirates. But she's also someone from our industry, and she works very hard and very long for IMEX, Debbie, for Reed exhibitions. Anyway, I'll let you tell your story. Please go ahead, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, it's such a pleasure to be invited here today. So thank you again for the invitation. My career started 32 years ago, straight out of college, and I moved into exhibitions. I joined someone who many of you, I'm sure, will have heard of, a gentleman by the name of Ray Bloom, who is the chairman of Regent Exhibitions. And I joined him back in 1988 when he was launching an exhibition in Geneva in Switzerland called EIBTM. So I joined Ray Bloom and two other amazing gentlemen at that time, Paul Plackett, who went on to be a tremendous mentor for me in my career, and another gentleman by the name of John Haynes. So I kind of worked my way up. I started in the organizing, I moved into sales, and found a passion for sales, found a passion for exhibitions. I stayed with Ray until he sold the company to Reed Exhibitions, which was in 1997. And then I became involved as a director for the mice exhibitions in the Reed Exhibitions portfolio. And that opened up a new world for me. I was working on an exhibition in Melbourne in Australia called AIM, as well as EIBTM, which at that time then moved to Barcelona. So I stayed, I had some very happy years with Reed Exhibitions, with Tom Nutley, with Debbie Jackson, who was my manager at that time. And then in 2000, I rejoined Ray Bloom and Paul Plackett for the launch of IMEX in Frankfurt. Again, a very successful exhibition. I think when you work for someone like Ray Bloom and Paul Plackett, you know, who's no longer with us, sadly, but two very passionate people who've really had a major impact on my life and the person that I have become during my career. Then I took a little bit of a change. So I was very happy. I loved what I was doing. I was enjoying the exhibition in Frankfurt. And then I got an opportunity to move to Bahrain in 2005. I just had my son. I've got a daughter who's 25. My son was born in the March, and then I received a call to ask me if I would be interested in moving to Bahrain to help establish the Bahrain Convention and Exhibition Authority. So ended up, I took the opportunity. I thought, well, this is a great challenge, something new. I'm ready for it. I want to do something different, and I've always had a passion and a love for the Middle East. So I moved to Bahrain with my husband, my daughter who was 9, my son who was 3 months old, moved to a new country, started a new job. Didn't really think how much was going into that at the time, but I was very, very excited. And I had 8 wonderful years in Bahrain. So I went there to help establish the Convention Authority, ended up as an interim CEO for the Exhibition and Convention Center, who was actually a member of UFI. So that was kind of like my first foray into getting to know UFI. I had a wonderful time in Bahrain. And then in 2013, I got an opportunity to move to Dubai and to run a chain of movie theaters, which sounds strange, but you know, when you run movie theaters, you're also in exhibition. So I moved from being a woman in exhibition to still being a woman in exhibition, just a different type of exhibition. We have 17 locations, and I call each location a venue actually, because, you know, being passionate about the industry, I don't think it ever leaves you, or you don't leave the industry. So all of my past experience, I made sure that we took that forward into the movie theatre and almost created event and entertainment hubs. So we're located across 4 locations, the UAE, in Qatar, in Bahrain, and in Oman. And that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years, establishing a brand and having a passion, working on a passion that I have for gender diversity and inclusivity, and trying to give back and help and inspire other women.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Debbie. It's great to see you back.
Thank you.
Even from a personal point of view. I'm now going to call Cliff Wallace, who's Senior Executive Advisor for Shenyang New World Expo. He's got lots of other titles, and he's actually boasts 57 years of experience in this industry. Now, can anyone say better? I challenge you. Anyway, I think you have 4 daughters as well, Cliff. Remind me, 3 or 4, I'm not sure.
Three's enough.
Three's enough? Maybe there's one you don't know about. I'm just teasing you. Please go ahead, Cliff.
Pascal, I'll ask you to put up a slide and just let people look at it for a second to kick this off. I thought I saw this only a week or so ago, and take just a minute to read it yourselves. Now, aside from it being closely related to what we're talking about today, I'll only say that I wish he was still president, but that's another point. First, with 3 daughters and my 2 eldest grandchildren being girls, and a wife of 51 years, I've had little chance when it comes to independent thinking, but seriously, I have experienced during my long career in this great industry what I consider to be a revolutionary change as it relates to women in leadership. Now, you may be sitting there saying, well, there hadn't been enough revolution, but hear me out a few minutes. When I became CEO 45 years ago, it was a man's world indeed in this business, and you had to be different to naturally evaluate women and men alike when hiring and promotion at that time. And when the pressure was on me as a CEO to achieve results, and I had learned from my mentor during a period of 15 years before I became CEO that if you really wanted to succeed, you had to build a team around you of women and men alike, and there had to be diversity. When the pressure was on me to achieve the results, I learned very, very quickly that not only the diversity was important, but listening to dissent among the diversity was very important. I really began to approach my CEO responsibilities much like I had fathered my daughters. I had to listen, I had to teach, I had to encourage, I had to recognize, I had to energize by providing opportunities for all of the staff. And I began to benefit truly from presidencies of international associations, global associations in the 80s. And the service on those boards helped me to understand the advantages of diversity and dissent and change. I learned quickly that mediocrity would never achieve growth, and certainly much less would achieve the meaningful mission that you should have for a company. And as my eyes were opened while listening at women and men alike, but especially women at that time during professional sessions and board meetings and staff meetings, the females, like my daughters at that particular time, seemed to be participating more, asking great questions, were very open and honest. They were seeking more professional opportunities, and they were more enthusiastic and responsive, it seemed to me, quite driven. And looking back, they were, and I think women remain today, more emotionally intelligent. And that term really was not even understood at that particular time. And again, this was back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But at the same time, in my positions leading associations, in talking to a lot of women about what they were experiencing at the time, I found out that they were frustrated because they weren't being recognized, they weren't being encouraged, and they were subject to traditional male chauvinism at the time that was driving human resource decisions. And after all, as unconscious as we may have been 20 years ago, a cultural bias against women existed in appointing women to senior positions. And that still, of course, does exist, but I truly do not think it exists as much today. Now, if we fast forward, we can look at the kind of research that Sonia just shared with us. The last decade of research is solid and it is clear. And though it was perceived for a while that women have been every bit as effective as men, the recent research clearly shows this to be the case over and over again. And in many instances, not just as competent, but more so in certain areas in many cases. I observed this daily in Hong Kong from 1995 when I became managing director there. I observed it in the mainland China, especially in Shenyang from 2006 when we started that project there. Today at HKCEC, 24 of the assistant department heads and above are female and 22 are male. In Shenyang at EXPO, granted it's a lot smaller facility, 6 of the department heads and above are female and 6 are male. And the CEOs in both cases are female and, in my opinion, among the most professional and knowledgeable in all of Asia. So the renowned research that we're seeing today is provided by such sources as the Harvard Business Reviews conclude that women are likely to apply for jobs or won't apply for those jobs unless they are confident that they're going to meet most of the objectives and the qualifications of the job. And given the opportunity, as the research says, women are just as likely to succeed in higher level positions as are men. Now, I would like to close my comments at this point with 4 suggestions. And I believe in this very much from the experience that I have had with identifying women to serve in leadership positions. First, I don't think we can ever be complacent, especially in evaluating human resources, and we must always be ready for change, especially change as applies to using the resources that are best for us, and that is being shown daily now to be more women. Second, leaders need to take a hard look at what gets in the way of promoting skilled women in their organizations. Third, it is imperative that organizations change the way they are hiring and promoting and the promotional decisions, and they must ensure that eligible women are given serious consideration. We saw on the survey before that men are making decisions in many cases. These leaders that are traditionally men now in this industry simply have got to look at things different and give serious consideration to the women that are in their organization. And they've got to make a special effort to find more women who are just as skilled and can probably perform better in certain areas. And finally, we've got to practice more encouragement, and that encouragement will give women and ensure women that they are confident and can do the jobs and are going to be given the opportunity to do the jobs and could be promoted earlier in their careers, given that the skills and the qualifications are there. We simply have to start looking at and evaluate and considering that in the decision for placing people and promoting people into the organizations.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you very much. It's very useful advice, I think. I think I read some of that research as well, that for the same job, if a man only has, say, 4 skills out of the 6 skills that are required, he'll go ahead and apply for the job. Whereas a woman will expect to have those 6 skills before she'll even consider. So sometimes it's maybe just having that audacity and saying, okay, I don't have everything, but I have most of it, and believing in yourself to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to ask a question. Have we got just a second? Just bear with me. I've had a question already from, let me see. Yeah, I've got 2 questions actually. I'm just wondering if she's here. Oh, I just lost her name. Oh, sorry, Ogbonna. Have we got Ogbonna somewhere?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Hi, Ogbonna.
I'm fine. Hi.
Hi. I loved your questions. Would you like to go ahead and ask the first one that you have?
Yes.
And you're from Nigeria, correct?
Yes, I am. I am.
Wow, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I was saying, I'm trying to ask how, as a woman in a leadership position in the exhibition industry, how you can assist you, make your team more productive at the end of the day, make them achieve the goals you've set out, as a business manager in an organization, because of course you have a lot of goals, there are a lot of things that are expected of you as a business manager and then in your own space. So how do you effectively make them, get to achieve these goals collectively?
Okay.
That's one.
Got it. Thank you. Well, we'll start with that one maybe. Did everybody hear that question okay? Because this sounds not fantastic. So Ogbonna, she just asked, how can a female leader in the exhibition industry lead a team much more successfully in terms of productivity and how they achieve the goal, the goals of the company? So would one of the panel like to answer that question?
Sure.
Mary, go for it.
So good morning. I honestly, I personally believe it's leading by example and being fair and equal with everybody. I think it's also giving everyone a voice. And that is one of the issues that women face in the industry is, and there's a lot of research that shows us that they speak up in meetings with ideas and there's the nod of the head, and then sometimes if a man presents the exact same idea, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. So there's tons of research there. To Cliff's point, the listening is really key. And it's hearing how the message is being presented, how the idea is being presented and supporting it. And sometimes what I and other female leaders in Diversified have done is we repeat what that woman has said as a good idea, so that it's getting that double hearing, as it were. That's a great idea, or perhaps you can add on to this. Giving the particular idea a voice has been helpful in many cases in leading teams to be productive. But I feel being fair and equal with everyone is really the key.
Okay, Debbie, maybe you want to answer this one briefly?
Absolutely. I think it's about creating the right environment. Leading with cause and purpose. You're setting out clear expectations. Give honest feedback. Encourage growth. People need to feel appreciated and motivated. Be transparent in decision making, as Mary says. Listen to people's ideas. And treat people like people, give them a voice, empower them. I think, you know, leaders who lead, you know, people sometimes say that if you lead with kindness and empathy, you're a weak leader. That's not, absolutely not true. It makes you a stronger leader. And I think it creates an environment where people will really flourish, be happy, be positive, and, you know, be more productive. And I think there's a University of Warwick did a study maybe a year ago saying that people who are really in the right environment, the right atmosphere that embraces open-mindedness and, you know, listening to new ideas, people are far more productive, I think around 12%, and that will drive business growth. So I think creating the right environment, you know, leading with cause and purpose, not with ego, encouraging, motivating, involving, and being transparent, setting clear goals.
Mm. Yeah, I like that, Debbie. Thank you. I like the leading with cause and purpose rather than ego. It's something that that's really important, and I feel that we have evolved a lot within organisations, so there's less tyranny, if I can use that word, working to a much more collaborative approach. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I think women have their place there. I've got a question for you, Cliff, if you wouldn't mind. Why do you think there are so few women in senior leadership roles? I know you spoke about your personal experience, but generally speaking, is it, you talked about male chauvinism in HR decisions in the 70s, 80s, etc. But how come today, we're in 2020, there's so few women in the C-suite?
Well, I still think that we're faced with a bias, as unconscious as it may be. We in this industry are still in a bit of a man's industry. And until our leadership opens up to what their resources are in total, what their human resources are in total, I don't think we're going to be utilizing what's available to us.
Hmm.
So I'll go back to the question that was just asked. If we establish a company mission, it ought to be established with every staff member's participation, and more importantly, with every staff member's understanding of what that vision is. And that includes an awful lot of listening, not only to the ideas of all staff, but the dissent of staff that may vary that. In the process, that recognition of input will help us identify some of the resources, female and otherwise, that are available to us, and can lead to greater opportunities for the females to be elevated, put in positions to where we're getting better results. So everything that has been said thus far with regard to encouragement, and I'll use the word energizing, is very, very important. And this thing of trying to communicate with people through email and text messaging needs to be reduced, and more face-to-face, where we see somebody that gives a spark, and where we see there may be qualifications there, we ought to start talking to them, especially our females, and giving them a chance, and then encouraging them, listening to them. And I think that will help us as male leaders to identify those resources that we tend, again, unconsciously in a lot of cases, to simply overlook.
Yeah, because I think it may be human, because we tend to relate to people that are more similar to what we are. And whereas the richness, I think, of a workforce is having different people, is having that diversity and different skills and complementary skills. And
one of the things I might add that I've learned, especially in Hong Kong, and I think we may have the CEO on with us today.
She just joined us, yeah.
Once you identify people that you think are qualified, especially females, to be elevated to higher positions, it's going to take some convincing in both cases, because they traditionally are fighting against the system, so to speak.
Mm.
And it will take some encouragement and convincing to raise their level of confidence, to get them to where you feel they can be. And so that's the other thing that I think that CEOs have got to understand, is they've got to listen and eye to eye, face to face, talk to people and see what those qualifications may be. And then they may have to start convincing at the same time. But that will come back to be healthy for the results of the company tenfold.
Mm. Yeah.
Can I add, Sonia, you know, there's a lot of training right now about bias and unconscious bias in particular, and how to address that issue. But unconscious bias is about being self-reflective, and that is deep work that people have to do. You know, there's especially in the US right now, there's, because of the race relations, that situation that's going on, that unconscious bias that you don't even know you have it. And many men and many women have preconceived notions or training that they have absorbed and has become part of their thought process, that we're not even aware anymore, you know, because it's been so long. And when you start getting more and more experience and things confirm or deny your own bias that you hold and maybe are not aware of, we've done that training, and everyone for the first few weeks afterwards was sort of watching their P's and Q's, as it were. But the bias does come back, and I do think it's self-reflection and not being afraid of that self-reflection, and looking at, okay, look, listening to Cliff speak about the bias, it's good to hear it confirmed that it's still there, and I think that it's a lot of work for all of us to really do that self-reflection and be honest with what the world really does look like.
Mm. Yeah, and bias, cognitive bias, is something that all humans experience at different levels, and it's something that can become so ingrained. Because I've done quite a lot of study on it as well, Mary. Yep. Yeah, that it becomes part of life.
Yeah, it does.
And one of the important things is to raise awareness that exists, and to actually take a step back and be aware of that. Yeah. Thank you both. I've got some good questions coming through on the chat function. I've got Mike Frost. Mike, are you around somewhere?
I am indeed. Sorry, I'll show you. I'm currently looking after.
I love it.
Sorry. So I'm trying very hard to pay attention, but so yeah, the question was, we're flying.
Yeah, you want to ask this question? Go ahead.
So the question is, I'm just curious as to what policies do we know are already in place within HR departments in terms of trying to eliminate unconscious bias from the whole hiring process, whether that's, you know, a CV coming in, but also when it gets to interview stage, and then yeah, the ultimate decision, I suppose. You know, how are we making sure we've got policies in place to eliminate it as much as possible?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Because
I'm going to duck out again. Sorry.
That's absolutely no problem. I'm very good. I'm very happy to see you've got the childcare function today. Who would like to answer this question? If you've got policies in place to help safeguard against bias.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer from our organisation. We've never had a bias. We've always had, we've never had separate pay grades for men and women. We've had a grading system, and we've made a conscious effort to make sure that when we're interviewing, we have a balanced number of CVs as well. So we're not going to, and it's not necessarily looking at someone with the highest level of academia as well. It's about the person, the personality, what they can bring to the organisation. So we made a conscious effort right from day one to ensure that we tried to have balance. But what's most important also is ensuring you get the right person for the right role, but creating a level playing field for both men and women, and the level playing field in terms of support. because there are a lot of, people talk about how are you supporting working moms? Well, how you also need to support working dads, because a lot of couples now, and you'll have seen this, especially during COVID, are much more involved as with the family. And I think it's about creating opportunities. And I've been asked before by some of my male colleagues, oh, I don't want to ask for time off to go to my son's sports day in case I'm perceived as being weak and that I'm not focused on my work. So I think we've made a very conscious effort from day one to look at having, gender diversity, balance. We live in a very multicultural society, so it's important to have people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. We all have different strengths to bring to the table. So we put a conscious effort right from day one to make sure that we try to keep a balance at all times.
Yeah, totally agree, Debbie. I think we've got Monica Mueller. You raise your hand, Monica. Would you like to say something? Monica?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hi, Monica.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I'm actually having some technical issues, so I didn't hear a lot of it in the beginning. But I saw the question, and one question asking if men leaders can be role model for women in business, and then I said absolutely yes. And for those who might not know, actually Cliff is my great mentor, my boss and friends for many years. Not only Cliff, but we do need men to recognize our ability. A lot of people thought that women are drumming, beating our own drum and just trying to be seen and to be having this feminist movement, right? Kind of things. In Hong Kong, in Asia, I think in general, a lot of women are shy to show their ability or to recognize their own abilities. It comes from a generation of cultures and social environment and all that. And so we do need men to support us and to recognize what our abilities and our skills and it can be, and we can be leaders as good as men, if not better. I saw also one question asking how Cliff can do so well. He's very patient to mentor not only women but men. He's actually, as he said earlier, when he identified potential of any of the executive, he would make himself available to coaching, teaching, and encourage them to move up, men and women. At the end of the day, it's really the ability and the character of the individual, regardless gender, to move upward, But as a leader, I think we really have to encourage those people who might have the potential and they're not aware of themselves.
I say here. Thank you, Monica. And I personally had Cliff as UFI president as well, so I can totally vouch for those leadership skills that you showed UFI as well, Cliff.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, and Monica too. But I want to go back to something Mike asked. Mike asked about policies in HR, and I think this is a fundamental issue. HR many times is driven, or the HR policy and mentality is driven by the CEO. So again, we have to realize that CEOs really, if they're going to be effective leaders, they're going to have to change their way of looking at things. I would say to an HR person, if we have a major management vacancy and opening, don't ever bring me just CVs from males. force them to go out and find qualified, skilled women that you can compare at the same time. And more importantly, consider the women in your own staff, on your staff, that may have those qualifications, and seek them out, talk to them again eye to eye, and evaluate what their goals and objectives are. Monica mentioned something about Asians being shy, Asian females being shy. That's to some extent, I think, true in a lot of instances, but they're shy because of tradition in a lot of cases. They're afraid to say, hey, I can do as good that department head you've had for 20 years. And in most cases, we're learning that if they've got the skills and the drive, and they will do as well. So in our HR process, the policy should be always consider hopefully an equal number of candidates, female and male.
That's something that you've put in place. You said in Hong Kong with 24 female, 22 male staff at the HKCAC.
And in Shenyang.
And in Shenyang as well, 6 and 6, you said. Yeah.
And believe me, we have found that it has resulted in an energy level that is unique. I'd also say if you ever have a female to come into your office and want to be a manager, that indication of confidence in itself is worth an in-depth discussion with that female.
And I don't think it's just in Asia. I do think that women, you know, there's plenty of research on that too, that they wait to be noticed. They work hard, heads down, and don't ask. And there's books called Women Don't Ask. And it's not just, it's about negotiating for yourself and advocating for yourself. It's about driving, you know, get the information you need and take a risk. And I've had to do this in my 28-year or so career, where I went in and I was trying to negotiate for equal pay. I've been trying to negotiate for even initiatives for my own teams. And I can tell you, like, my heart's in my mouth, and I'm going in and they just go, yes. And then I blubber, you know, and keep talking, because it was too easy. And it didn't sound to my boss at the time that I was asking for anything unreasonable. But because we wait to be noticed, and because we have that fear, or not, well, lacking in confidence, I suppose. And most people would say I don't lack confidence, but Kellogg taught me that I did. And but when you ask, and then they're like, yeah, absolutely, I'll look at that. And you're thinking, why did you build it up to be such a big deal? And it's that inner voice that is, you watch a man do it. I see men, like, I have pretty much an equal team, although it's four women and 3 men on my VP team, and I think they're in a good position where they will ask. But I watch men in our own organization not only ask but expect. So to Cliff's point, when they do ask, take notice, because it's not that comfortable for most women.
Yeah, it takes additional effort, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Martha.
Not for every woman.
No, yeah. Sorry, Mary. I was just going to call up Martha. Martha Janero.
Hi.
Martha, you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Hi, Martha. You have a question. Hi. Good to see you.
You too. So first of all, Mary was my CISO mentor when I joined a few years ago. So I'm really, really excited that you're doing this program today. So my question is about when you encounter the unconscious bias, because I do agree with what Cliff said, that a lot of people are not overtly chauvinist. But when you do see it, and to Mary's point as well, you do become hyper aware. And so you have to find that balance of when do you need to speak up and point out that you're feeling uncomfortable with the with the attitude, if you will, in the meeting or in the room, how have you confronted it without it being confrontational?
Yeah, interesting question.
I'll just say one thing quickly. It is a great question. I wouldn't advise a female ever to go in and say, I'm uncomfortable with your way of leadership or the way you're running the company. I would go in speaking about my level of confidence that I can bring results to the company and I can help meet the mission. What leaders are looking for is a level of confidence and someone who understands the mission and the objective and the goals and will express that confidence to be a part. So go in on a positive note of what you're confident that you do.
Okay. Anyone else want to answer that question? I've just seen Nicole's added, and just to build on Martha's question, when you've been mansplained, sorry, mansplained the meeting, is a graceful way to address that. Mansplained. I live and learn.
I would say two things. Answering Martha's first question, in my experience, and I've had some recent experience, when I've had to advocate for being mansplained or being spoken to in a different way than my male counterparts, I've actually waited a little bit and then brought it to their attention, brought it to the person's attention, and they're usually surprised, and it's not intentional. But it's an education process. And I think because the topic is so front and center right now, I do think that there's more of a willingness to listen. But to the mansplaining part, which happens regularly, that's where we have had agreement amongst women that we say, oh, is that adding on to what such and such said? Or is that, both of you have had a great idea, and actually support it, but just keep creating awareness of what's happening. Is sort of how we've been dealing with it, or I've been dealing with it.
Great question as well. Next question I've got is Ian Sterling. Sorry team, I forgot to tell you, Ian Sterling. Can you unmic Ian? He's got a question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Sonia, hi,
Hi, Ian. Good to see you.
It was basically what Monica was answering. I was asking if there are so few women in leadership positions, who can they lean on to as a role model? I mean, and that's why I was asking about, can men be a good role model for women as well? And that's obviously also on a point level is why the Women in Exhibitions Network, which has now been recently formed, is a good step forward in that direction in terms of getting those women into high level positions. So it was based on Monica's pretty much answered it, but getting can women lean on men in terms of being a role model?
Absolutely.
Debbie, would you like to have a go at this one?
Thank you, Sonia. I mean, I completely agree. There are so many wonderful men in the industry who are ready to support women. And I know I have been the recipient of that myself, both with Ray Bloom and with Paul Flackett, who absolutely supported me throughout my entire career, gave me the helped me to bring out the confidence and the self-belief that sometimes I think women, we doubt ourselves too much. We're very good at convincing ourselves otherwise, or talking ourselves out of an opportunity. And it sometimes takes a man to say, listen, you are capable, you can do this. And I would not be where I am today if I hadn't had an amazing influence of both Ray and Paul in my life as tremendous mentors. And I think because I've been given that opportunity to learn from two amazing men, I feel an absolute responsibility to help other women and to support other women and to mentor other women. And we need to be there. Sometimes you just need someone to champion you. It's inside you. You know the answer. You have the confidence, but sometimes you just need that person to be there to champion you, but also to challenge you. Not just to agree with everything you say, but to challenge some of your decisions, to make sure that you're on the right path. And I think mentorship is absolutely critical in you know, moving up the career path or taking opportunities that you want to go for. And I think just having someone there on your side to champion you and help you to believe more in yourself or to bring out that confidence is paramount. And I'm such a huge advocate of mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're not going to get there on their own. You'll need the male counterparts to help you get there.
It could be male or female. I'd like to think it's both. I mean, I think we all have a responsibility.
That's what I mean, sorry.
Yeah, I think we all have a responsibility as leaders to help encourage the next generation of leaders. I mean, we all have a responsibility to give back.
Yeah. You know, I would add to that, Ian, that I have a broad range of people that I go to with questions, male and female, but I look for the person with the right answer. Not necessarily the answer I might want to hear, but I do reach out to Joe Popolo from Freeman has been an amazing supporter for me with advice. And would I say he's been a mentor? Yes, probably, and also a sponsor. And I think the more I'm reading right now, there's mentorship and sponsorship where we put our neck on the lines for people we believe in. And in many cases, I look at all the people in this room, as it were, I think many people would do that for women and men alike.
You know, if I can add one thing, I think what we're going to find out as we progress and evolve, I think the women that become CEOs and senior leaders are going to prove to be even more effective mentors for the primary reason that they're more socially intelligent. They listen more. They will talk to you face to face more. And I think if you did a survey right now at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center or the Shenyang EXPO, where they both have female CEOs, I think you'll find a staff that absolutely considers them ultra mentors. And one other bit of research that I have read recently that I think is going to be revolutionary is the research is showing that aging women are more confident than aging men.
A positive thing. That's good to hear.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I'm just agreeing there. I like that one. I'll keep that one, Cliff.
Yeah, I'm going to write that one down too.
I've got Sonia Gadelrab. Sonia, are you here? We're running out of time, but we'll try and squeeze in Sonia's question.
Hi, Soraya here. So I've been in the industry for 14 years, and over that time I've seen lots of initiatives trying to redress the balance of women in the more senior positions. However, they just haven't gained any traction. I don't know if they didn't have the right agenda or whether the timing wasn't right. We recently launched Women in Exhibitions in the UK following our European counterparts, and we seem to be gathering great traction in the UK. It seems to be becoming a subject which is being supported across the industry. And I guess I'm interested to know if you feel globally that we've actually reached a turning point in the industry where this is becoming a subject that will be continued to be discussed and continually improving on, or have we just got lucky and gained traction on this particular occasion?
Does anybody like to answer that quick? Well, I can answer that for a start. I would say no, it's up to us.
Yeah.
Over to you, Mary.
I appreciate that. You know what, I think it takes a few women to make a stand, and that is, or to make a point and not be afraid to make it. And that's what we did at CISO. We, at the CISO CEO Forum, there were very few women. I think there was one female speaker for the whole 2 to 3 days. And Courtney Muller, Courtney Muller and myself went to the board. We were on the board, and there was a drive to make the board more inclusive. And we brought it up, launched the women's SIG special interest group. Dana from Informa was there, and Rita Uganskis, and we've started to drive that a lot more. What we need to do now is to get it part of the main program where it is front and center. And I think it's a turning point. You know, I've often said becoming the first female president of UFI is great, but it's only going to matter when there's a second, a third, and a fourth, and that's when you are going to see change. So I think, you know, one woman can't do it by herself. So the more that women get involved, the better. And I think it's let's just say I'm committed to making this an everyday effort, because I feel like it does go by the wayside too often, and we end up letting those initiatives fall. But there's many committed women out there to try and drive change.
Okay, so I think we're just coming up to the end of our time. I personally have greatly enjoyed the discussion. Have you just one or two words you want to say before we finish up, Debbie, Cliff, or Mary?
Yeah, I would just, well, first of all, it's been a really engaging discussion. I think women just need to believe in themselves more. Definitely get yourself a mentor if you don't already have one. Find someone to champion you, and get yourself involved. Volunteer. If you want to get noticed, take part in panel discussions. Put yourself forward for industry association committees. So get yourself out there, get yourself involved, get yourself noticed, create your own brand for who you are, what you stand for, because all of those things together will start to get you noticed. And yeah. We need to empower other women. We need to give them the support and encouragement that they deserve.
Thank you, Debbie.
Those are good points, I would say. And I would also say to the last question, we may not be at the turning point that most on this call want, but I think there's been positive change, and that's going to continue exponentially.
Thank you, Cliff.
And I would add to what Debbie said, you know, one of the things that happened with CISO was that many women were asked to speak and refused. They were nervous or whatever. And you have to put yourself out there and volunteer as well. So I'm a big believer in that. But in my role as UFI president, June 15th is the launch. I'll never miss my opportunity on this, Sonia. June 15th is the launch for the Board of Directors nominations, and I would hope that many women on this call would put themselves forward for those board seats. It's a very complicated process, but it's a start. Let's start and get more women on that board. It's 90% roughly male dominated, so there's plenty of women on this call who could participate on the UFI Board of Directors.
Yeah, totally agree. I'll be sending the call for candidates on the 15th of June, as Mary just said. Okay, well, thank you all for a fantastic session. Thank you to the participants who also made it very interactive. I've personally really enjoyed it. I hope you have as well. Pascal, I think you've got some if you've got any comments, whatever, please share them with us. I'm sorry if we didn't get around to your question. We will take copies of the question. We'll try and answer all the questions that we've had in the chat function. We'll ask for your feedback. We'll send you a quick survey just to see what you thought, because we're always there to improve ourselves. And feel free to post stuff on social media after the session closes. So I'd also like to thank, if you move on a slide, Pascal, to our diamond sponsors. You can see them on the screen: TSEB, Qatar, Shenzhen World, Freeman. I want to say again a big thank you to the speakers, to Debbie, to Cliff, to Mary, and a big thank you to the UFI team for being such a great team. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.